Hey guys, Glow here, and today we are talking about time management, specifically time management for those of us who are working a full-time job and also creating content on the side. Now, y'all aren't going to like this, and I know that, but you're going to have to plan. That's kind of this entire thing is just a way to plan out your week. If you're trying to get a lot done and get everything into 1 week, you have to plan. There's really no way around it. If you just want to kind of go laissez-faire about it, do your own thing, just do it as it comes up, that's perfectly fine. This method is not for you. So the way I do this method is basically assigning a set amount of time to every single thing that I want to get done in that week, figuring out how much time I have left and then allocating that to everything else. So for this method, we are starting with the same 168 hours every single week. That is how much time there is in a week. That is what we have to go off of. So that's where we start. The first step of my method is going to be allocating time for different categories of tasks. So I use 3 categories when planning my life. So there are immovables, there are non-negotiables, and there are personals. So your immovables are going to be things that are sort of out of your control that are going to happen either around the same time every week or you have every week, even if the time may change. That's going to be things like work, sleep, meals. Even if your sleep schedule, your work schedule, etc., changes day to day, just based on what is happening in your life, I still recommend allocating time to these and erring on the side of caution, rounding up in these times just to make sure that you have the time for as much as possible that you can do. Because no matter what, you're going to need to work, you're going to need to eat, and you definitely are going to need to sleep. So write down exactly how much time you think you're going to spend doing these each week. And again, round up. It's better to overplan than to underplan. Next up, we have non-negotiables. So these are sort of the next step. These are things that technically are not necessary for your life, but you want them to be necessary. For me, these are those areas like streaming, self-care, things that I want to make sure that I have time for, and I will plan around them. The reason I call these non-negotiables is I am going to put them on my calendar at a very specific time, and then I am not going to cancel them or change them unless something else comes up. So basically the same reasons you would miss work. If you get sick, if there's an emergency, anything like that, those are the only reasons you should really miss your non-negotiables. Of course, there's always special circumstances, and so you have to be the judge of that and when you think it's appropriate to skip these items. But same exact thing, any non-negotiables, just figure out how much time you want to spend on them, and then we're going to add those to our time clock as well. And next up is personals. This is essentially everything else. If it's something that you don't mind if it gets moved around as much, or if it gets canceled, or if it gets postponed, it's going to fall into this category. For me, this is things like the gym, personal game time, creative time. I like to have time for these things, and I do want to do them every week. But if I have to cancel it for whatever reason, I'm definitely not going to beat myself up over it. And I know there will be time next week. So when you have all of your time added up, you figured out everything you want to get done, and you know exactly how much time it's going to take, or at least an estimate of how much time you think it's going to take, what you're going to do is add it up. So in my case, I've got my list over here of all the things that I am working on and how much time they take. And you're going to subtract that from 168. Again, that's how many weeks we all have in a week. You can't add more. That's how much you get. If you have more hours than 168, we have a problem and we need to reevaluate. You need to go through and see how you can prune that list and tone it down so you have more time. I recommend having a little bit of an excess. You should have at least 5 to 10 hours excess every week. So you have a little bit more wiggle room with your schedule, and you have a little bit more freedom if you do want to add things, or if things changed around, because there's always going to be something that happens in our daily lives that we don't expect. And you need a little bit of that buffer time to work with. Once you've gotten your time whittled down and you have just enough buffer time for whatever you're comfortable with, it's time to sit down and plan a week. Now, you don't have to make this your actual week plan, week to week to week. It's just time to make sure that you actually have space on your calendar for what you say you're going to do. Even if it looks like you have that buffer time, make sure you're really going to have that buffer time in existence when you get the tasks on the calendar. So what I'm going to do now is show you guys exactly how I plan. So let's plan a new week. As you can see, I already have a couple of scheduled events on my calendar. These are going to be those immovables and non negotiables. So on my calendar, I always know that I'm going to be working at the same time. I have my routines planned, my streams, and even my self care plan. These are things that I want to make sure are a part of my schedule no matter what. Again, I treat these activities like appointments. Like if I need to cancel them, I need to be prepared to do that and know why I'm doing that in advance. Even if your work schedule isn't necessarily the same every day, I still recommend putting these work blocks on your calendar just because you know that that's about how much time that's going to take up from your week that you cannot use to do other things. So, if let's say your work schedule changes every single week, you work different days, you work different hours, I recommend just making just like this, like 4 or 5 blocks and make it the max amount of time that you think you could work. You can always get back more time in your week. Let's say if maybe you work more hours this week and then next week you work less hours, you can change those work blocks, but you can't add more time. We all have the same amount of time. So if you underestimate your work blocks and plan around that, and then you have to work more, now you're losing time for those other activities. So with my immovables and non-negotiables already on my calendar, I then like to use ClickUp to organize the rest of my personal tasks. So I have already gone through the process of figuring out how much time I want to spend doing each of these different activities. And based on that and my own schedule, I have created tasks and recurring tasks in ClickUp. I don't have enough time to go over how I use ClickUp fully today and how I get it all set up. But if you do want a separate video on this, let me know in the comments. I am more than happy to do that. But basically, I just have everything in here. I have them separated into different, spaces over here under Glow Get Shit Done. And they're just separated by the type of work that they are, the type of personal tasks that they are as to where they fit in. So I'm just going to go in here. I like to use the agenda tab because I can see exactly what I have planned for that day and put it on the appropriate day in my Google Calendar. I'm going to use that now to get my week planned. And there you have it. That is everything that I have planned for this week. I actually left some open blocks on my weekend this week because I am planning on hanging out with some friends. So I wanted to make sure that I had plenty of time for that. Sometimes I will fill these blocks in and just say something like social or friends, but you can also just leave them empty. That's up to you. Another thing that I will mention for my own schedule, I do schedule in these breaks every single day during my work day. Just need a little bit of a break from work. And I do often clean during these breaks in my apartment. So typically like Mondays, I'm working on laundry. Tuesdays, I'm also working on laundry. Wednesdays and Thursdays, I'm doing things like cleaning my bathroom, cleaning my kitchen, all of that. And then Friday, it's just sort of whatever I need to do. I don't add those items separately to my to-do because I already know that I have this time in which I can do them. I've set aside that time specifically. And then I like to do the breaks every day. Basically, I also have my work calendar so I can pull it up, see exactly what I have scheduled for work that week, and make sure that my breaks are not interfering with any meetings or anything like that. So I can move these around as I choose based on that work calendar. But as you can see, I've got a lot going on. We have a full day's work. We've got our time for the gym. I've got time for some artwork that I'm working on, my streams, all of my YouTube and website content, and then also give myself some time to play my favorite video games. This will change, of course, just depending on what I am feeling at the time. And then just making sure that I always have time for some self-care for myself. I do recommend, if you can, having a little bit of self-care time every single day. I actually include that in my routine. So I have my morning and my nighttime routine, and that's just already included there. Again, that's one of those other things I don't feel the need to break out because it is just part of what I already include with that time. But this is what I go through every single week, usually Sunday evenings, right before I hop into my bubble bath. I go through and I plan for the week to make sure that I have time to get everything done. Obviously, there are things that come up and you can never really prepare for everything a week in advance. So I don't want anybody to view this as like, this is very strict. You have to abide by this calendar, this schedule every single day for the rest of your life. That's not going to happen. I like to see it as, this is a framework. This is the outline of my day. And if everything goes according to plan, this is how I would like my day to go. Sometimes things don't go according to plan and I have to change things around. I have to move things. That's why I do like, if you're able, leaving some of these blank spots so you can move things as necessary and it doesn't feel like your entire life is spiraling out of control just because maybe you had to work a little bit later than usual, or maybe you had an emergency come up and you had to help a friend or a family with something. So just keep in mind, this is just an outline. Don't beat yourself up if you can't stick to it, especially at first. When you're not used to keeping routines and schedules this way, it can be difficult, but the more you get used to it, the easier it becomes. And it just becomes a routine of its own. Just making sure you have time for the things you need to do, the things you want to do, and then the stuff that just makes you happy too. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe, turn on those notifications. I hope you enjoyed this and it helps you plan your days a little bit more streamlined from now on. If you found this helpful, let me know in the comments. And if you have any other tips or tricks you'd like to share, let us know as well. Have a great day.